Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Ron, and today is just a quick update on the DJI FPV version 2 goggles. The DJI version 2 goggles have been rumored for a while now, and they're finally confirmed with multiple sources and websites that they're now available. DJI has officially announced the version 2 goggles, but as of this video upload, you're still not going to find them on the DJI store, at least not on the DJI store in the US. Now, I have heard that the DJI store outside the US has started selling them. Now, that being said, you will find pre-orders on sites like Fatboy FPV and Get FPV, and I'll leave some links below if you want to check those out. But before you rush out and buy them, let's talk about the differences between the version 1 and version 2 goggles, and if you should actually even consider the upgrade. First, the form factor is exactly the same. If you have the version 1 goggles like I do here, they're physically identical. Let me say that again. The version 1, version 2 DJI FPV goggles are physically identical. The only difference is the FCC label stamped on the bottom saying they're version 2 goggles, and that's further detailed in the FCC filing as well. Other than that, there are absolutely no physical differences. The goggles I'm holding in my hands right here are the original version 1. I wasn't fortunate enough to get the version 2 goggles from DJI when they were released. For all intents and purposes, they look and feel exactly the same as the ones I'm holding here in my hand right now. You put them on, they're going to look exactly the same. You move them around, they're going to look exactly the same form factor, no differences. Now, one quick note, it is worth noting that the foam insert inside this particular pair I did swap out, and the strap here, it had the original strap that went over the top. I didn't like that over the top of my head, so this is a Rotor Riot strap, but other than that, again, the physical differences, characteristics, no changes. Now, if you bought accessories for your version 1 goggles, they'll all still work with your version 2 goggles. Things like your foam inserts, your upgraded face plates, updated antennas, diopters if you have them. All of those are still going to work exactly the same on your version 2 goggles. Also, any hacks out there for the version 1 goggles, you can assume they're also going to work on the version 2 goggles. I've sorted through a ton of news releases and specs out there, and there's no reason to think that those hacks won't work. Just check your local regulations before making those updates. I'm not telling you to try any of the hacks out there. I'm just sharing the knowledge and what I know. Now, in the interest of saving time, I put together a quick cheat sheet with all the specs. I'm going to put it up here. I personally like to see all the specs listed out so that I can fully understand them. Feel free to pause the video and refer back to it for the screenshot if you need to get a full picture of all the differences. So here we go. Anything that's different or upgraded, it's highlighted in yellow on this cheat sheet. So let's quickly run through what we're seeing here. First, you're going to see the minimum latency specs show 810p in the version 2 goggles, but if you look at my spreadsheet, the original version 1 goggles are showing 720p only in both low latency and high latency modes. Also, the existing DJI FPV Air Unit and Caddx Vista systems only support 720p. So you're not going to see any advantage here with your existing systems or setup. But we can speculate from this that when the new rumored DJI FPV quad comes out, it's going to take advantage of the higher minimum latency specs of the 810p. We don't know that with 100% certainty, but we can assume this to be true based on what we already know from the leaked videos and rumors to date about the not yet released DJI FPV quad. Next, you have the screen refresh rate. Screen refresh rate is the number of times that the screen updates with a new image each second. The higher the refresh rate, the smoother the delivered visuals. So this is a small improvement in the version 2 goggles, but I would say the difference is going to be nominal, that you wouldn't notice the difference between version 1 and version 2 goggles, though again, it's a small performance increase. Screen resolution is the same at 1440 by 810, and your screen size is still exactly the same at 2 by 2 inches. Exactly the same. Weight is exactly the same as well. No changes here. Now, here's where things get interesting. Notice on the new version 2 goggles, we have a communication frequency in the 2.4 gigahertz range that we didn't have on the version 1 goggles. Version 1 only had the 5.7 to 5.8 gigahertz range. While the version 2 goggles now have both ranges listed, it can be speculated that the 2.4 gigahertz frequency band being used on the version 2 goggles will be used specifically for and the not yet released DJI FPV Quad, since the existing DJI Air unit and the CADX Vista systems don't support the 2.4 gigahertz band. The primary difference between 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz bands is range, or your coverage. Everything else being equal, you'll get more range out of 2.4 gigahertz bands. Typically, the 2.4 gigahertz bands are used for lower bandwidth activities, while the 5.8 gigahertz bands are used for higher bandwidth activities. So it looks like DJI is going to try and get the best of both worlds by using the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5.8 gigahertz bands in the version 2 goggles and for their future release of their DJI FPV Quad. Again, yet to be released. You'll also have a larger storage capacity with the version 2 goggles. They're going from the 128 gigabit of storage in the version 1 goggle to the 256 gigabit storage in the version 2 goggles. Next, we have the LiPo batteries. On the version 1 goggles, we were using, don't have it here, 4S batteries with 7.4 to 17.6 volt range. And now with version 2 goggles, it comes with a 2S LiPo from DJI, similar to the other DJI LiPo batteries for the other quads if you own those or flown those. But you can use up to a 6S LiPo battery, 26 volt if you need to. So looks like DJI is trying to accommodate existing FPV pilots so they don't have to always have a 4S battery on them if they're flying their quads with a 6S battery. And finally, you have the price. Now, it's worth noting that you can no longer purchase the version 1 goggles from the DJI store. They're no longer listed on their site. Nope, you won't find them there, but you can pre-order from sites like Fatboy FPV and Get FPV. And again, I'm going to leave links below if you want to check those out. The version 2 goggles are selling between $569 to $579 US at this time. I wouldn't rush out and buy these if you already have the version 1 goggles. I won't be buying the version 2 goggles to fly my existing quads, the ones behind me here. However, if you don't already own a pair of DJI FPV goggles, then of course, these are the way to go, and by all means, check out the version 2 goggles. The only reason to buy a version 2 goggles currently for existing version 1 goggle owners would be if they're buying the new DJI FPV Quad when it gets released. It doesn't appear the original version 1 goggles will work with the FPV based on everything I'm seeing, but that is not confirmed because the DJI FPV is not yet out. It's just an educated guess on my part. Bottom line, the version 2 goggles are just an incremental increase over the original version 1 goggles. No need to rush out and buy these if you're an owner of the version 1 goggles. Now, it's clear to me that the version 2 goggles were designed for the DJI FPV, which isn't out yet, but I'm projecting will be out soon, probably in the next few weeks. I don't doubt it will be more than a few weeks before DJI officially releases their first FPV. It's also worth mentioning that there is still no HDMI output or an easy way to export the menu screens from the goggles. If you were wondering about that as well, we're still going to have to take something like a GoPro and stick it in there to get any footage of all the menu screens. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do me a favor and leave this video a thumbs up. It's always appreciated. If you can like and subscribe, that's great as well. I've got some great video coming soon from a main trip I did with my wife, some great FPV footage to come. So until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video.